Okay, so hi, it's Jen, in case you didn't notice. I'm doing this a little bit for my own purposes just as much as for the purposes of this class. So to track my whole leadership growth over my entire lifespan and to hopefully be able to show my students these videos, a whole bunch of stuff. So to preface, I am Jennifer Griffin, music education major, Spanish and history minor. I am currently a junior attending Benedictine University, and this year I have the very unique opportunity to be a part of the Arthur J. Schmidt Scholarship class, for which I'm really honored. We're almost done with this semester. We have about 3-4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks left in this fall term. And the context for the world right now is that COVID's going on. I'm still a manager working at Culver's. I'm still a full-time student chilling here on campus. A lot of the things that I've been struggling with within my own leadership journey has been this idea or this consistent self-narrative or lack thereof. I've really struggled with this whole, okay, well, who am I? Do I have the right to say that? Like, who am I to lead all these people? And that's what I really like about this course so far, is that it's framing leadership as not this innate thing that you're born with. It is this skill, almost like a muscle that you continue to work on in order to improve upon that. So in this book, for this journal reflection, I'm going to be going over chapters 1 and 2. The preface for these chapters, as the book sets up in the introduction, is that leadership is a mindset and a way of being and behaving. This is my synopsis of it. It is a growth mindset fostered by the burning desire to make a difference in the lives of others and the world around you. Every designated direct action can be considered an act of leadership when viewed under the right lens and the right perspective. So in chapter 1, we are introduced to the idea that leadership isn't something that you're just innately born with. It is a skill that is developed. Oftentimes people actually want to take the responsibility off themselves to actively become a leader by saying, oh, well, I'm not talented enough, or I don't have the position, I don't have the strengths, I'm not a superwoman, I can't do all these things by myself, and it doesn't come naturally. But in reality, it doesn't need to. So long as you, I think, from reflecting and reading this book, so long as you have the passion to move people, and you have the passion to care for people and encourage them and watch them grow and develop as individuals, then I think that you can become a really successful leader. And music education, being that as my background, that's my whole framework, my intellectual framework, is this idea, this growth mindset that I really want to see every single person grow. We just had the elections and whatnot, and I was thinking back to over the summer. I was an OL, orientation leader, and the number of kids that had Trump flags all in their all in their rooms, and I'm like, y'all do realize you're coming to get a liberal education, right? You're coming to chill with multi-ethnical, multi-religious people, and you got this Trump flag up on the wall, bro. What's up? But I could come from the ignorant perspective of, oh, well, I automatically don't like you. What is this? Or I could come from the teacher perspective of, all right, cool, you think like that. That's great. Let's analyze why you think about that, and have you come to your conclusions and your political sentiments based off of legit research, or are you just playing loyalties to a certain political party because that's what you know, that's what you grew up with, social learning theory. So that's the background. My base foundation, I think, is this idea that I want to come from a growth mindset. In terms of areas in which I can improve personally, like I stated, I have a poor self-narrative. I'm also really disorganized. I think as part of my self-narrative, I say that I don't motivate people, I can't relate to others, and I'm not good enough. I also need to learn how to ask for help and rely on the strengths of the team. I also need to work on putting together a team instead of doing everything by myself. That superwoman complex. At the very beginning of the semester, I was very lacking in self-confidence as a result of different life experiences. So I'm working on gaining a new sense of self, a new self-narrative, and therefore more self-confidence. And I've been dealing with this idea that it's not really my place to speak up. Who am I to share my voice? But as many of my professors have pointed out, like I'm a collegiate student, right, who's going to become a teacher. It is my obligation in this role as a student and then as a teacher to make sure my voice is also heard, because I'm black, I'm black, I'm a woman, I stand for and I represent certain groups within the country, and it's important that our voices be heard within the educational context. So, chapter 2, in chapter 2, so this whole week for me, this past 2 weeks have been a very pivotal shift in my intellectual framework and in my whole educational paradigm. I came across the works of Professor Jamila Lescott, whose last name I'm pretty sure I'm saying wrong, but this idea that she brings up of authentically participating, authentically engaging within the classroom experience, like how do you get students to do that? And even more so, how do you get like students of color, students from diverse backgrounds to authentically participate in a Eurocentric educational tradition? Her point that she makes is that there is no room for them normally within the education setting, and she speaks specifically to her experience and the experiences of other students within the English class setting. As a black woman, she speaks 3 different versions of English, 3 different dialects. She speaks Ebonics, which is black people slang in America. She speaks the learned English that her parents had to learn being immigrants and having to come to America and relearn like English and whatnot. So she speaks that way with her parents, and then she speaks standard English, which the academic world views as the correct English or the intellectual English or whatever. And so she goes in to explain how by saying that other forms of English are not correct, you're actually invalidating the entire student, because that's how the student interacts with the world, like that's the language that they use. So for me, as a person who speaks Spanish, French, and English, I relate to the world in 3 different ways. When I'm speaking Spanish, I'm a little more sassy. When I'm speaking French, I'm a little more suave and like, or whatever. When I'm speaking English, I carry the contextual burdens with each language. And so I can relate to the world differently based off of which language that I'm speaking. And I can relate to different people because of my ability to communicate in their native tongue. So it's the same concept then that she applies. She's also trilingual in that she speaks these 3 different forms of English, simply because you're able to speak to and recognize and represent other people's experiences by speaking their language. And that for me is like a really important part of leadership that I would like to include within my own leadership model. This idea of how do you authentically engage your downline, for lack of a better word, in a way that encourages them to give 110%. The only way you can do that is by pulling to their cultural backgrounds, their lived experiences is the term that I coined, and saying, hey, what you bring to the table is valuable. Who you are as a person is valued and valid. And we respect you, we understand, and we value your contributions. Instead of saying, oh, no, you need to be ashamed of who you are. No, we're not going to accept you and your language and your hairstyle and your cultural norms because it doesn't fit our mold. So having a leadership model that is constantly adapting and constantly expanding to what the needs of the people are is the most important thing for me. So this chapter talks a lot about how leadership makes a difference, and I would like to root my leadership in this contextual framework established by Dr. Lescott. You and your experiences are valid and valued. And for me personally, I need to start making space for what it is that I value in my own life, and I need to demand space for them in traditionally exclusive arenas such as education. So personally, a philosophy that I established after my high school graduation is this idea that I want to be light. Now, in the past 3 years of me attending Benedictine, this has morphed into a slightly more sophisticated idea of I want to live in my authentic light and encourage others to demand that their voice in their own context and cultural background be heard, valued, and validated. Because of a lot of personal fears that I've had, I've not allowed myself to be fully dedicated to any singular endeavor. This mindset, this fear-based action needs to change if I'm actually to accomplish my goal of living fully in my light and in encouraging others to do the same. So I need to demonstrate, I need to model for whoever wants to follow me what it means to authentically engage with materials and to present even the most vulnerable parts of myself to the world so that they know the whole story, my narrative, and so that that narrative can make the difference in the lives of other people. I'm constantly working on myself, and I encourage others to do the same. I do need to work on my perception of that. However, at times I can come off as like holier than thou issue thing going on, and at other times I'm expecting too much or I'm pushing too much. Like, it's great for me to work my 60 hours and take thousands of credit hours and whatnot, but like I also have to validate the experiences other people have and the strengths and weaknesses that they have. So if they can only do one class, or if they can only work 20 hours while they're going to school full time, then I gotta support that. I gotta, hype them up as much as I help myself up. I can't be like, oh, let me compare my experiences, because it's not about the comparison of different people. It's about the comparison of one person to who they are right now, who they were in the past, and then who they are going to be in the future. So again, centering around this idea of the growth mindset. So now, quite a bit of the way into the course, I feel as though I'm 100% aligned with what my leadership goals are and what my career aspirations are. I wasn't, though, at the very beginning of this course because of a lot of the fears that I've had. Like, even doing this video, in the back of my mind, I'm saying too much, I'm stopping too much, bad Jen. But a lot of people speak like this, A, so if I'm invalidating myself, I'm also invalidating them. But B, it's fine. Like, A, no one cares. Like, we need to get past this idea of needing to be perfect. And a lot of people, in looking at leadership, think that their leaders are perfect. The leaders are not perfect. They're human, they're fallible. And the difference in the leadership mindset is that they are constantly looking for areas to grow. Not to be perfect, but just to continue expanding their knowledge base and to continue expanding their skills and just growing. And that really fascinates me. So some concrete things that I'm doing to help solidify my now 100% alignment is I'm developing a leadership program in my work. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I work at Culver's. I'm a manager over at Culver's. I'm applying to be an assistant general manager. I'm really excited to hopefully get that position. Not so much for the pay raise as much as it is that I'll be able to work with my kids a lot more. I work with a lot of high school students at work. So basically what the leadership program is going to be designed to do is we're going to take this concept of the whole child, the concept that we have in education, and then transfer that to the concept of the whole team member, in that we're going to, again, validate the experiences that the team member brings to the current and established culture of Culver's, and we're also going to expand upon their strengths, help them identify who they are as a leader and as a person, what is their personality, what are their self-perceptions, how do others perceive them. So we're going to really work with them and help them get the needed skills, not only for the job market, but also for just presenting yourself. Like, in this world, you have to sell yourself in order to either get the promotion or get the degree or, get entrance into a certain program. So you have to be able to market yourself. And we're going to help kids with their interview skills, with conflict management skills, dealing with unhappy guests or perhaps unhappy team members on a shift. So this whole development of them, who they are as an individual, and how it is that who they are can affect their own leadership within the shift. So creating more autonomous leadership within shifts. I'm also currently, for this class, working on an LCOM proposal, learning community class proposal. Hopefully, the idea is, again, leadership based, this idea of global, immediate community and global leadership. And so with the summertime, we had the killing of George Floyd and the protests. We also had the Trump administration for the past 4 years that's now given way to the Biden administration. But the underlying cause of a lot of societal problems in the American context is this whole concept of race. Like, what is it? What does it mean? All these different things. And so a lot of the issue is that people don't understand, again, this term that I coined, the lived experiences of other people. White people do not know what I go through as a Black woman. It's just not happening, right? Because we don't share the same lived experiences. And so in proposing this class, I'm hoping to create more open dialogue about the different lived experiences of people, but I'm also going to provide a lot of diverse and divergent opportunities for students to have access to this information. So we're going to be watching movies, we're going to be watching documentaries, listening to lectures, engaging in group discussions. We're going to be sitting in circles. It's not going to be teachers up at the front. It's going to ideally be student-led. After we get the program growing, we're going to have students who are graduates of the program come back and lead in the discussion, obviously with the professor still in charge, but it's going to be really student-led. And at the end, I would ideally have students research immediate social, so like in their immediate communities or on a national level, and or a global problem, global social or environmental problem that they feel resonates with them. And they're going to present hopefully at URSA with this. So part of this, the background for all of this is that I'm taking, what am I taking? I'm taking 20th century political and social movements, and I'm also taking contemporary Latin American history with the wonderful Dr. Fanny Rushing, and she brings up a lot of social problems in the global world that I had no idea were going on, which as a junior in my collegiate years studying history, although I just changed that, but whatever, I should know about that, as one of the educated individuals approaching the society and leaders of the world or whatever. Like, I need to know about the experiences of other people in the world around me in order to effectively communicate, identify needs, and to lead these people. And so I think Benedictine does a really good job the first 2 years of, establishing the English writing skills and going through the gen ed requirements. But I think to help students create more meaningful experiences for their learning and to help them become more fully and authentically engaged with the curriculum, they have to have this both national and global context in order to understand really the severity of all of the social issues that are going on in our world, which is what I think that the liberal education prepares us to tackle really well, provided that we have the intellectual framework to actually go out and identify what the problems are, and to also have the working skill set in order to do research on it, present on it, and speak intelligently on social problems and potential solutions. So another thing that I was working on for this course, but I think I'm moving to be its own separate thing, is this idea of stepping into our excellence. Again, Black people on campus aren't really represented as much as we could be. I know that there is BSU on campus, they do a lot, but I feel like we could have a more prevalent voice. And so this stepping is a traditional African-American cultural thing. I'm not actually familiar with it because I grew up in the suburbs. I don't really know much about it other than what I've seen on medias, but it is a community building activity, basically a community building organization that really helps solidify, okay, we're Black and we can be proud about our Blackness within a predominantly white institution. It's okay to be Black. A lot of students have expressed a sentiment saying that, I feel out of place here. All these people that don't look like me, all these professors that don't look like me. So now we're creating another space where students can come and feel validated again in their own lived experiences. But the other part of that, it's stepping into our excellence. So the excellence part, there are quite a few issues that face specifically Black America within the country. And again, normal college students don't normally come into contact with what these problems are until much later in their collegiate careers or after they've already graduated. So the biggest problem is finances. A lot of people are going to get into debt trying to keep up with the Joneses and, buy the latest thing or bad student loans or whatever. And so how do you manage the adult world straight out of high school in terms of your finances and economics, and how do you start building generational wealth? Will be topics that we're tying into the stepping program. We would have speakers come in to talk about these different financial topics, and we would have workshops to help students who are involved in STEP or involved in BSU or in the Benedictine community come and learn how to be financially literate and how to start setting themselves up for success after they graduate college. So the final thing, I am a part of the sorority on campus, Theta Phi Alpha. and I am currently working on a proposal to implement mindful meditation. And basically, the goal of this is to talk through self-narratives. Like I said earlier, like my whole thing was this poor negative self-narrative that I had of myself that was preventing me from authentically participating in my collegiate experience, which I see in a lot of the girls in the sorority. Like, they're also going through mental health crises, or they're also like just they're not living to their full potential because of whatever self-narrative they have going on. So I'm interested to see if I can implement that. It'll be a lot of like daily affirmations, or maybe we'll start a podcast. I don't know what that looks like just yet, because I still need to propose the idea to the girls. But these are the concrete activities that I'm working on that directly affect my community, as a result of the endless well of love that I have, both of myself and this idea that I can be light, and also of other people. Like, I love people. I love watching people grow. So that's chapter 1 and chapter 2.